So yeah, welcome to um Ramses. Ramses Online again? Ramses Online? No, not Ramses Online. Language of Ramses by Neighbor. Geez, you can tell I'm still having jet lag. Um, chapter 19. We're approaching the middle of the book, and chapter 19 is all about the third future. Depending on the text, there can be a lot of it. Over here is the Hittite-Egyptian peace treaty, or rather a tiny, tiny piece of it. And everything that's blue is third future. So it's definitely a useful tense. Um, Now, one thing you may ask yourself is why third future? How many futures does one need? Actually, I always like to go back to English for questions like that. And having more than one construction for the future is nothing unusual. The Romance languages have it. Latin has at least two different ways how to do it. In English, we have a whole ton of them. So you can say, we're going to Chicago next week. That's basically a present tense, but you can use it for the future. You can say, we will go to Chicago next week, or we shall go to Chicago next week. You can make that progressive. We will be going to Chicago next week. We shall be going to Chicago next week. Or you can use a periphrastic construction with to go. We're going to go to Chicago next week. Finally, you can also make it like a past future. Next week, we will have gone to Chicago for the second time. Or a little bit more stuck up. Next week, we shall have gone to Chicago for the last time, for example. So how many futures do we have here? 7 futures in English. Some of them have very specific, or not specific meanings, I would say nuances. For example, shall very often has a sort of like a legal undertone, like a commandment. We shall not leave until all the money has been retrieved, versus we will not leave until all the money has been found. There's like a slight difference in seriousness in there. And of course, like thou shalt not kill or thou shalt not steal. So shall has this somewhat stronger command feeling to it, or the way that Neveu would put it, he calls that deontic, what one must do. And the third future has that too. So it behaves very often like shall in English. But we have all these other ways how to express the future as well. So having multiple futures is nothing unusual. Why precisely the third one, I'll address in a moment. But before we go there, let's take a look first at how it actually works. So the way you form that, it's actually already around in Middle Egyptian. It's essentially, again, an adverbial sentence. So you use the particle you plus suffix pronoun plus are towards. So you've at Sejam, he is towards hearing. In other words, he will hear. That's what it really is. So subject, are, infinitive. You have at Sejam, he's towards hearing, he will hear. Or, for example, from one of the Neveu sentences describes that it has been allocated to you. We're talking about rations here. This is from the strike papyrus. The workers are basically asking, so what about our pay? And the scribe comes back with good news. They have been allocated to you. Well, and then I don't know. Aaron, do you want to take that one or should I?
Sure, I'll take it. Anyone
All
else?
right.
No?
No?
Her iwi deni F and 10 Jess E. So I will share it with you myself.
That's right. Exactly. So since this is the village scribe of the El Medina, that he'll be overseeing the distribution, that's of course a positive assurance that the workers will like to hear. So yeah, and I shall distribute them myself to you, Noten, or Nathan. Perfect. So yeah, pretty straightforward. I'll do the next one. Again, I think all these sentences are from Neveu here. I have a few others further down. Inquiring about some prisoners in, it's spelled na, but it's in iutu, into, is one or shall one bring them? So this is the question particle at the beginning. And then there's a third future using the indefinite pronoun too. So you can use that as well. Iutu, into. Shall one bring them? Will one bring them? That's all it is. To negate it, you just put a bun in front of it. So nothing special. You have a sejam, just put a bun in front of the whole thing. This one here is using the word chai to find fault. to find fault with somebody is chai n somebody. Yeah, Evan, I'll give that one to you. We'll just like go back and forth today since.
Okay. Is this B1 a first person or a second person?
Excellent question. In context, it is the first person, but you're right, it could be either.
So Ben Ue or D Chai to NE. So I will not cause one to find fault with me.
Perfect. Picture perfect. And chai tu is a subjunctive, as always after D. D very often comes with subjunctive sachem F afterwards. Like you said, I will and I will not cause that somebody find fault with me or accuse me or something like that. Well done. So honestly, grammatically, nothing too so far, nothing too overwhelming. In terms of meaning, Neveu calls this the objective future. And the prospective sachem F, which is also a future, very often you can use that in the sense of I shall or I shall not. Like, for example, we had one example one example sentence, I shall not tell any lies, and that was a sachem F. But this is the prospective sachem F. It has like there's sort of there's the intention, there's the wish, but it's not a hard and fast, this is what's going to happen, or this is what should be should be happening by obligation. That's what the third future is for. So very often it has that sense of obligation. This is what must happen, just like shall does in English legal texts. And yeah, the word he uses, deontic. I had to look that one up. I guess my philosophy classes are failing me. Comes from a Greek word for what is right, deon. And here is another example sentence. Her yui, the R is missing here, which happens a lot, just like the her missing in the first present. The R can be missing half of the time. So her yui er hab echrau embach per a anech ujai senep painip anech ujai senep. So, and I shall send about them, or yeah, about them, whatever it is, these matters, these people, these goings on, in front of Pharaoh. It's interesting. When you talk about Pharaoh, you have to use embach. It's one of those cases where you can. There's sometimes the question like, did Egyptian use special forms for politeness? Like, for example, tu versus vous in French, or tu in usted in Spanish. Do they have like a distinction between formal and less formal? Or like, of course, Japanese, I mean, where it's like all over the place, right? So many different ways to indicate formality. Not too much, but this is one of them. If you send to Pharaoh, the preposition to use is embach, in the presence of Pharaoh. So, and I shall write about them to Pharaoh, Leifeld's prosperity, my lord, Leifeld's prosperity. And this has a sense there of obligation. Any
Why does
questions
the
so far?
neb come before the E in my lord?
That is a really good question. I've just wondered about the same thing. Did I copy it wrong? I mean, neb could have the neb here, the A1 man may just be because it is the Lord, so as a person, but you would sort of want to see another
Oh,
A1
like an
before it.
honorific transposition, sort of?
No, more like to indicate that it's a
Oh,
person, but
like as a determinative.
that's right.
Oh, I
But
see.
before I assert that, let me make sure that it didn't just copy it wrong, which is well possible. No, it's really this way, or at least it is this way in Neveu as well, in the
Yeah.
English version. I mean, you would sort of expect this, right? That's funny. I mean, you would expect another A1 man in between. Not sure, not quite sure why that's not there. If it's like an oversight or, yeah. But yeah, that will be the full version, my lord. I don't think it is another suffix pronoun after the neb. That would be, you can do that.
Weird.
You can say this lord of mine. If you wanted to say this lord of mine, however, it would be pai neb anak. You would use
That's right.
the special possessive pronoun. There is an example of, I think, nai remich anak, these men of mine that I send to you, blah, blah, blah. So you can do it, but it wouldn't be with I don't think it would be with the suffix pronoun afterwards. So I would take this as a determinative, assuming it's real. Somehow I cannot correct this parenthesis. Okay, all right. Well, it will have to stay. Other questions?
Yeah. Why is in spelled na?
Happens quite a bit, but why? That's a really good question. I'm assuming it's maybe just pronounced n at this point in time.
Mm.
I'm not sure. The question particle in Coptic is ene. So in my mind, I'm always reading ene, and if they spell it in or ne, it's the same thing. But yeah, it can be a bit confusing because when you see it, you think
You
article,
think
right?
yeah.
Yeah, but it's not
Ben, I'm so
unusual.
glad you're here.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay.
The
Now I don't
farmer's
have to do
market,
all the
and
examples.
oh, good, I can help. Awesome.
That would be awesome, yes. Because Jonathan is taking care of some kids, so he has his microphone on mute. And ET said she couldn't come. I think Rebecca is still traveling, so
Better late than never. It's late Egyptian, so just
uh,
kidding. That was
you're
terrible
right.
pun. Sorry.
Late Egyptians are late, yeah. That's what I used to
Been
tell the
made
Sumerians.
before.
So great. No, we just got started on the third future, Ben. Essentially, just quick recap. I mean, you know it from Middle Egyptian, I think. U plus suffix pronoun plus R. So he is towards what? An infinitive. He's towards listening. That's one way how to form the future. To basically say he will listen or he will hear. It has often a sense of what should happen, no, what shall happen in a legal sense, like this is an obligation, not so much like the perspective ZMF, which can also mean future, but it's more like an intention. This is the thing that I want to do, versus the third future has more undertones of this is something that I must do.
Is it more like ought to, or is it slightly different than that?
I think it's very much like shall in English, which also has that kind of oscillating role. Like if I say, nah, thou shalt not steal, that's actually a very strong obligation. It's a commandment. You're not allowed to. I shall not leave is like a very strong intention, right? It's like this is definitely tomorrow it shall rain. That actually sounds kind of weird. It sounds very old-fashioned. It doesn't map
Yeah,
one to one onto English, but it has more
Yeah.
this. It's more like this is going to happen. At
It's
least
an alternative to using a direct command or a negated like auditory where it's like let's not steal, or it's a different way of saying don't steal, or maybe because you're commanding someone but you're using a different phrase like it's not wishy-washy like you shouldn't steal but you might anyway. It's
let's
more saying like you shall not steal, don't steal. Or no, just check.
you're going in the right direction. I wouldn't go as far as a command, maybe. So it's not an imperative, but the examples we had so far is I'll just quickly read them out. This one was Cheryui Erdeni, Nathan, Jesse. I shall distribute them, the rations which just have arrived, to you. This one is just a statement of fact. This is definitely going to happen, and this is to assuage some workers there in Medina waiting for the salary, essentially. So this is what's going to happen. This is more like a strong assurance. It's not a command. This one here is in yutu into. Shall one bring them? Na is or in is the question particle here. Shall one bring them, namely some prisoners? It's more like this is really a question. Is this definitely going to happen? So the meaning is more definiteness than a command, if that makes some sense. But that lends itself to, like, for example, contracts. This and this shall happen, basically, is sort of like an obligation. But it doesn't go as far as a command. Does that make some sense? I'm hoping
that makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of like where you have two or three different sets of the like each of not tenses but the conjugations. So like the first one is used for more matter of fact, like general statements, and the second one is usually used for more not more subjunctive, but trying to remember, like statements uh that are just that are more aorist, like in the Semitic grammar sense. And the third ones are used for other things, other types of aspect. Like I'm just
You mean in Egyptian, in Coptic?
in Egyptian in general. Like there tend to be in Egyptian grammar, there are usually two or three different types for each tense or conjugation, right? So the first one's just a general fact. I'm
I'll
just
get
trying to
there.
keep them straight.
I'll get there in a moment.
Okay, sounds good. Cool.
Give me 10 to 15 minutes. We'll get there.
Cool.
Before we go there, one thing I wanted to show is what you do for nouns, because so far all examples we had were with suffix pronouns. So I shall distribute, shall one bring them? So shall they be brought? Again, another I. Actually, so far, pretty much all of them were with I, female or male version, feminine or masculine version. But let's look at nouns. And there's one interesting difference. For nouns, most of the time you don't use you. And Neveu has a few examples where that happens, but the normal way, all the way into Coptic, is you use iri instead for nouns. So it's iri en segem or iri en er segem if the R is not dropping out. So en being a noun, like the prince or the king or whatnot, the king will hear. Or if you put a bun in front of it, the king will not hear, basically. So that's really the key thing to remember for nouns. You use a different auxiliary. You don't use you use iri. And that's the same in Coptic, actually. In Coptic, you use e for suffix pronoun and ere for nouns, just the way it is. I'll do one example, and then I'll hand back to you guys for the second one. But let me do this one first, just because the Ramesses orthography takes a little bit getting used to. So bön. Oh, wait, this is the case that's being addressed here from the peace treaty between Ramesses II and Hattusili, is if you have any defectors. Defectors, say, for example, if a whole city were trying to go from Egypt to Hatti or the other way around, that's not allowed, or also individuals. If they want to like change allegiance, they have to be returned. You can't just have a brain drain. You can't just suck up people from the other area of sovereignty and make them yours. Instead, what's supposed to happen, if there are any defectors, ben iri pawer a en Hatti, shezepu. So ben iri, that's exactly what we're looking at here. That's that third future. And not shall, pawer a, the great, what do we want to call that? What is the word? The great, simply. The great in Hatti, the great of Hatti, the great one of Hatti. Shezepu, receive them. So that's the of the future three. It's spelled out in this case. Shall not receive them, because this is an infinitive. You use the suffix pronoun. So what should they do instead? Or what should he do instead? Iri power a in Hatti, the great one of Hatti shall, did, give, or cause, into that they be brought. This is a subjunctive segem F, or prospective segem F. He shall cause that they be brought to Wisdom matre setependere. So that is our Ramesses II. They shall be brought to Ramesses II. Pahaka'a, the great ruler and Kemet of Egypt. Paisen Nib, their lord, life, health, prosperity. So you have a negative example. Ben iri, blah, 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 something, something, and iri, blah, blah, blah. And in this case, he leaves the R out. It should really be R dit. But very often the R just drops out. Yeah. So that's how it works for nouns. I have another example from the same peace treaty, a little bit longer. Maybe we'll break that up into two halves. Who wants to take the first half? I'm neutral. One word I should tell you is cherui. Cherui is enemies. over here.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So iu ki herui erna tau and usamatre stepenre pa haka a and kemet. So as for another enemy coming,
Mhm.
sort of, to the lands of Ramses II, the great ruler of Egypt.
Perfect. Mhm.
Tuf hab and pa wer and chata arjed. So, and he hub goes down or send.
Sent.
And he sends to the ruler of Hatti to say,
Mhm.
okay, I see where this is going.
Uh-huh. So
So
what
if
does he
you get
say?
invaded and you send to me
Mhm.
and you write to me,
And
Okay.
what does he say? Take one more.
MD I'm getting lost here.
This is a bit more tricky. I have to help a bit on this one. Now this is so this is me, right? Me, MD. Mhm.
EMT.
MD is this preposition with so with and then suffix pronoun. So MD would really be with me. And then there's another M.
Nechet.
That's right. And I think in this case it means forces, like military forces.
Okay. So come with me come with me.
M has three different meanings. The little m can be in, but that doesn't make sense. Can be from, doesn't make any sense either. And the third one, which is kind of rare, but it happens, with, like with in the sense of the instrumental, like with a hammer or I don't know, with a sword, or in this case,
You mean and?
Kind
Or is
of.
that later? Because like hana means with and then it kind of gets replaced by m sometimes.
No, not really. It's more like a with.
Okay. Cool.
So come
think of like man and topic.
So come with me with force. Is this a suffix pronoun, this oo, or is this just a plural?
It's just a plural, I think.
Okay, with forces toward it, against it?
Against it.
Against it.
Against it or against him, namely the enemies. Kind of weird that it says him when it says but it had ki, another enemy.
Yeah.
So I guess it's treated as a singular, even though they're like plural strokes. Yeah, I got a bit confused. But against him, namely the other enemy. So that's exactly it. You got it.
Okay.
Let's do a quick grammar thing on this. So EU and plus a noun. Any guess what tense that could be?
I don't know. I can't think of it.
Third future that we just saw, or
could it be?
No.
Let's see. So if it were a future, what's the subject? The subject is another enemy, right? So that's a noun.
It would need an ear, wouldn't it?
Exactly. So it would be iri and then ki harui. So that's not what it is. It's the verb first, followed by a noun. So verb, noun, what is that normally?
Oh, the perfect, right? The first perfect.
It could be exactly. Could be a perfect ZMF, or it could be a prospective ZMF. Which of the two is it? In this case, you just have to know that with ir, it would be a prospective ZMF. So it's basically in the case that as for if another enemy comes, blah blah blah, then when you had this one perfectly as a conjunctive, and he shall send to the great one of Hatti, basically. So this we didn't officially have this one yet, but it is the subjunctive. subjunctive rubbish, the conjunctive, coming soon. It's basically a connecting form. And then this is just an imperative, come, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. Ben, do you want to try your hand at the last two?
Yeah, I can try. I just had a quick question about the encheti or the enchetu,
Mhm.
or nechetu. Is that just literally its possessions, right? But is that like the belongings of? But here it means forces, like enemy forces. Is that what? Just want to make sure I understood that.
No, that's
It's like
cool.
the stuff of, or his stuff.
That is
Here
cool.
it's
No,
like
you're
his
right.
military.
Let's have a quick look at it.
Okay.
Ba, 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 ba.
So I think that
Shows up.
makes
It shows
sense.
up in a lot of names.
It does.
Nakat, yeah,
So
like the strength of, the force of, the power of.
Strength. Oh,
That's
so
right.
maybe it has a sense of like I was thinking of it as like an army, like a that kind of force, like a military force,
That's how I took it
like a
too.
belonging men that belong to someone in terms of the armies that are someone's
Right.
commanding.
So there's a few things. There is Necht. Necht in the sense of the adjective, strong, powerful, forceful. That's the one that you find in a lot of names, or also like with this powerful arm and the like. It's a favorite attribute of political and military leaders.
Makes sense
So
for the hieroglyph there.
I mean, you could spell it out like this, like N, Het, and then with the whatchamacallit, the striking man, or it could just be just a striking arm. It's the same thing. Then there is the word victory, and I don't see it here. I don't know why. Here we go, victoire. So nechtu. Nechtu is victoire. Victoire, victory. You'll see that a lot actually. For example, in the Ramesside like war reports. Of course, they talk a lot about their victories. So you'll see that word a
Right.
lot. It's spelled almost the same way. It could be spelled with the W and with plural strokes. So that's one way how to tell it apart, I think. And then there's the word force as well. That's this one here. That's the one that we have in the sentence. Again, it looks the same. It's kind of hard to tell if you're looking at strong, at victory, or at force. They sort of all have pretty much the same spelling. But yeah, those are the three.
According to a message in the chat from Jonathan, it can be a crew or army as well also. So in some contexts.
Thanks so much, Jonathan and Ben. Yeah, I agree. That makes sense. So I think that's what it means here. When he says forces, I think he means military forces.
Okay. Cool.
And why he
With a
uses,
long definition.
to your earlier point, why he uses not Gena or MD, or well, he already used MD over here, so you're not going to do that. Or Irem, which becomes Nim or Mun in Coptic, depending on if you speak Sahiric or Bohairic. Why he uses M here, I'm not completely sure. If that's a fixed expression, maybe? Not sure, honestly.
So Iram becomes Nem or M
That's
in
right.
Coptic, not N or M.
No.
Okay, I didn't realize that. That's
The way it works is Gena dies out. It's still there in
right.
Demotic, but it goes away in Coptic.
Oh, okay.
MD becomes ente, the one that is used as a genitive particle
Right.
in Coptic, and then Idem becomes mun or nim in one of those weird sound changes that I can't explain. I don't know how you get from Idem
Okay.
to nim.
Got it.
Cool.
Isn't there an among also, like an M that's sort of among,
Yes,
like
there
come
is.
among forces
Possible.
with the connotation of it with?
It could be. It could be. Although honestly, what I would do now is I would look at, are there more of these? Like, is this maybe like a fixed expression? It's sort of my gut feel, but it could also be, because you're right. There's also a long. All right. Let's do the last two lines on this one.
Okay. I can try. Let's see. So ir ha or where?
Mhm.
En khati. See the determinatives. Khati eat
Mhm.
nef em en chet or en cheti. No, just
Just
en
like
chet, right?
nechet.
Nechet, right? Nechet. Yeah, thank you. And then then ir pa where or en chati chied
Yeah,
chiedet.
this is really hard. I apologize. I was trying to keep the Ramesside orthography, so that I can make this really big.
Is that like the displeased, mildly displeased H, the H with the line under it, or
It
the
is.
chia? Okay.
Let me write this out. I have to give this subtitles afterwards, anyways, because
Mildly
Use H.
displeased H.
Yes.
What's
Mildly
that?
displeased H, like with a straight line emoji.
An H with a straight line under it is mildly
Disappointed
displeased.
H.
Disappointed.
He's not
That's funny.
okay. Hied. Okay. It's like here, right? So hied, then it's is this ket to cut? Hied ket? Or is the knife pronounced there? I'm not sure.
I'm actually now
hoot?
mildly surprised because for some reason I would have expected a B here. I was expecting but
Hoot?
that's not what he writes. Let me double check that just to make sure I didn't make a
Sure.
make a mistake. Ba, 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 ba. He says Redep, but that's how it's spelled. That's interesting.
Hiedeb.
Is that regular? Give me a quick moment.
Or maybe it's the triliteral with the knife. I don't know.
Maybe, huh? I mean, this is what I was
Oh, the
expecting.
determinative there.
Normally it's a determinative, so I think they're just missing the B because this is how it should be.
Okay.
You know this word in Coptic, I'm sure. Hotev, to kill, to
Oh
slay.
yeah. Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's all over the place, right? You see it everywhere. So that's Hotev, and it
Right.
should really have a B,
Okay.
and for some reason it doesn't. So let's just
Yeah.
assume it was there.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and it's a Hotebet or a Chetebet. Do you still have pronounced the T at the end, or is that just
Oof, that's a really good question.
maybe we could put in parentheses since it's there?
I'll put it in
I don't know.
parentheses to your point because it shouldn't be there. It's not a weak verb, so there shouldn't be a T.
And then the determinative there just goes with that because of it's a verb meaning to kill. So
Correct.
it's like a little arm with a dagger or something.
Correct.
So paif, was it sedu? Let's read this one. Hair.
Herui.
Hair.
Herui.
Okay.
Enemies.
Enemies. Okay. And that's it. Yep.
That's it.
Oh, yep. All right. So Europe. So to this is doubly great. Where oh, to this or to the elder, to the very great one, like the chief maybe, or the king of the Hatti.
Right. The chief of the Hatti, the great chief of the Hatti, yeah.
The great chief of the Hatti. So the chief, the king of the Hittites, meaning that. Oh, kill his army, like slay his army. And
Not
how is this
quite.
going grammatically? Let's see.
Right. Think of the topic of the lesson, basically.
Right. That I will slay his army, but I'm trying to figure out what person is. Let's see. His army. If his if his army shall be slain, if his army is defeated.
Let's do that.
I'm having a problem. Sorry. Yeah, good.
Let's do that one by one.
Sure.
If you wanted to say, just going with your example, if you wanted to say, I will slay his army, for example, how would you do that with the third future? Ignore the sentence that's there. Like, just how would you say that actually, based on everything we discussed?
Yeah, I think it would be like ear ui.
It's you
No.
for
You.
for suffix pronouns. It's only ir for
Okay.
nouns.
So it'd be Yui,
Ue. And then
it would be Yui er Hiedep or Hiedeb. Then his it would be just be Paif or Pefherui or Paifherui.
right now, army would be Misha.
Misha, right.
So that would be
Yeah.
it. Yui erchedev paif Misha. Correct. That would be I want to slay his army. Okay, that's going to take a
Right.
while, but okay.
Yeah.
If you wanted to make that the pharaoh wants to slay his army, how do you have to change it?
So you need a noun subject. So you'd have
Okay.
oh man, let's see. So you then parao.
Great. And then what happens to the you when you have a noun subject?
It would have to be uf.
Not quite.
I think no. We just had this above. It would be eerie.
That's right. Just like in
I'm glad
Coptic,
we're practicing this. Thank you.
that's good. Just like in Coptic, for the third future, when you go from like a suffix pronoun like f hotev, you would go
Right.
to ere ebrome hotev. So you also change from e to ere. It's the same thing. You already get it here. So this is how you would do this. Okay. So let's do it then in the opposite direction. Forget about. So if you just see the first part, iri pa wer a in Hatti. So the great chief of the
He's the
Hittite.
subject. Okay, I see. So the great chief of the Hatti is the subject,
That's
and
right.
then we had if the great chief of the Hatti should kill.
Where do you get kill from?
Or wait, I was going to the next line.
Try this one first.
Sure, yeah. It should approach with his which should approach.
You're close.
Yeah,
You're
and then
close.
approach into F is just refers back to the subject being third singular, with his army or with his force.
Maybe. Why do you translate this one as approach?
Or come.
That's better.
Yeah, okay.
So let me try this in Coptic.
The chief of the Hatti should approach or come with his force.
That's right.
With his army.
I'll just spell it out real quick, just
for
the video.
That's helpful.
Bear with me for a moment. So, however you would say the great chief of the Hatti. I'm not sure how to say that in Coptic. Naf for him. You wouldn't say naf. You would say probably. I think you would probably say it off, if I'm not mistaken, in Coptic. But let's do pseudo-Coptic, like as if it was hieroglyphs. Naf, and then with his nechut, nechtu with his forces. Yeah. So this is not an if, but this is the future tense, right? So make this one into English, and I think that should become clearer. Just forget about the if part. There is no if in there.
Okay. So should the great chief of the Hatti approach with his or come with his forces?
That's right. The great chief of the Hittites shall. You could say should, but I'm going to make it even stronger. I'm going to say shall come with his forces.
So it can be a statement of a future fact that will happen.
That's
and not necessarily should or something subjunctive. That's what I was getting tripped up on.
Exactly. No. I think the best translation for the third future is shall. The great chief of the Hatti shall come to him with his forces.
Force, right, to him, right, Nef.
And then the other part?
The other part is here. The great chief will be the great chief shall have his army killed. No,
make it simpler. Make it simpler. You're almost there.
Then the great then the great chief shall kill his
Mhm.
own army, meaning his army will die because the pharaoh will kill them. That's what's implied.
Yeah, and the only thing that's tripping you up, this one doesn't actually mean army, it means enemy.
Oh, right, yes. Different, varying his word choice there. Then the great chief of the Hittites shall kill the enemy.
That's right.
His enemy.
That's right. Let me put the whole thing together that you guys had translated.
Sure.
So,
oh, it's a peace treaty. Oh my gosh, yeah. So of course he's doing that so that they're not at war. Sorry.
That's it.
We got the point.
No worries. If another enemy shall come to the lands of Ramses II, the great ruler of Egypt, and if he shall send to the great chief of Hatti, saying, "Come with me with your forces against him," namely the enemy, then the great chief of the Hittites shall come for him or with him with forces, and the great chief of the Hittites shall kill his enemy. Period. That's it. So basically, there's an obligation here that if
someone attacks Egypt, the Hittites will defend Egypt.
Correct,
and they share common enemies.
And it goes on a lot more. There's like stipulations in there. If the chief of Hatti doesn't want to come himself, he shall inform Pharaoh of this, and he should send his army nonetheless. So he doesn't have to show up himself, but he has to send his forces and make Pharaoh whole. And it also, reciprocity goes the other way around. If this should happen to Hatti, then Ramses has the same obligation and the same. But you don't have to come yourself. You can just send your forces thing and so on. I mean, there's like lots of, if there is a dispute in the land of the Hittites and Hattusili's son should not be chosen as successor, then Ramses II has an obligation to intervene, basically. I mean, there's like a lot of different stipulations between the two countries.
Sounds like a very, very detailed legal document. It sounds surprisingly modern in some ways.
It is. Cool. And I was telling Aaron and Jonathan before you came on, Ben, I mean, with the grammar that you guys have now, or that we all have, I should say, since we're learning this together, and the vocabulary, I read this thing this morning in an hour on Ramses Online, the whole treaty. It's surprisingly easy to read. There's also a lot of repetition in there, so that makes it even easier once you've looked up a few words. It just flows. So I'd highly recommend it. I can send you guys the link later. It's a good read to practice your.
That would be helpful for practice.
Yeah, please do.
Thanks for being patient with me on helping with that, as always.
I mean, the purpose of this is to learn it, right? I'm not just trying to get through the chapters. So
yeah, exactly. Appreciate it.
Cool. I'm looking at the clock. I have to leave on the hour exactly today. Let me do this one real quick, just so that we finish on time with chapter 19. A very interesting thing you can do in Late Egyptian is, so you have that converter when, which normally is to put whatever you have in the past tense. So if and basically goes back by one layer into the past. So if you normally have like a first present and you stick a one in front of it, it now becomes sort of like an imperfect or something. And when you combine that with the future, it very often has a sense of what would have happened or what was about to happen in the past. There's like an irrealis kind of feel to it. So something that didn't actually happen. And I'll give you a few examples to see what I mean. Those are, I think, all taken from Neveu. I just simplified a little bit. The first one is more like a future that was about to happen in the past. It's from the Tale of the Two Brothers. What happened there was that actually the elder brother's wife was trying to seduce the younger brother because she was impressed with his strength and whatnot. And the younger brother, of course, rejects it, goes like, "You're like a mother to me. You guys brought me up. How can I do this to my brother?" And then the wife of the elder brother feigns an illness, and when upon inquiry of her husband what happened, she basically concocts a story that the younger brother had tried to assault her and basically seduce her. So she flips the story around. And of part in that context, her ear dik anachef, and if you give that he lives, yui ermut ni or nay. I will certainly die myself. The ni seems superfluous in English, but in Spanish you could do it too, like me voy a morir, me moriré. I'm going to die myself, which, yeah, it's basically, again, a third future here with a you and an r, because it's a pronoun. I'm going to die, basically, if you let him live after everything he's done. Why? Pawen. Pawen is this because. Pawen tui shenu pai semi beni or bini. Because I am aggrieved, sick, hurt, whatever you want to call it, because of pai semi. Smi normally means report. I'm a bit puzzled by this word because it should really be act, not report. By this evil act, I'm not completely sure why he's using semi here, because smi normally is like a report. Maybe what she has just reported to her husband. I'm not completely
Maybe
sure.
a bad rumor or something. I don't know.
That would fit better. But the funny thing is, she preempts anything that the younger brother could say about her by telling her side of the story first. So, question mark. I can't tell you. In any case, so she's aggrieved because of this. And now comes the interesting thing. This pai semi bin, wenu iuf iref emsef. So UF iref emsef would be, he will be doing it yesterday. So that's our third future again. UF iref, he will be doing it. But it is put into the past with wenu, so that he was about to do, and then she adds himself yesterday. So this is like essentially a future in the past, if that makes sense. So this is one way how to use the third future with the when converter. But the one that's even more interesting is the one in the following two examples. This here is from an inquiry. I think it's, again, some kind of criminal inquiry. Jedef, he said, so this is just a past HMF, right? Jedef, he said, Bupui Peter Remech Nebit. I did not see anybody. So Bupui is or it would be MP in Coptic. It's the negative perfect. Peter, pore in Coptic, is to see. So I didn't see Remech Nib. I didn't see anybody. For some reason, the Remech Nib has a T at the end, which doesn't make any sense because Remech is not a feminine noun. So this is just, it basically means I didn't see anybody. Chena is if. It's in a realis if, like if something had happened. We had that, I think, 2 weeks ago. Chena Petri. If I had seen something, Venu Yui Jetiv. I would have said something. Literally, I would have been upon saying something. But that essentially is like if I had, then I would. It's the kind of irrealis tense that I just find it cool that it's explicitly marked in late Egyptian.
That is really cool.
It is, right?
So that's the third future plus when at
That's
the
right.
beginning of it. Okay.
Right. And just like in English, we use the would for something that didn't really happen. It would have happened. I mean, it's technically also a past tense, or at least it looks like one. In reality, what happened in English is that our subjunctive of the past and our indicative of the past, they have merged due to sound change. And so as a result, things that are distinct, say, for example, in German, they all become one tense. But I find that's a good way how to sort of like familiarize yourself with it. We do sort of the same thing. If I were rich, I mean, it's technically it's a subjunctive, but it feels like a past tense in English. If I had money, it feels like a past tense. It's kind of the same thing. You can use that
We're
here.
doing.
That's right.
Like we're doing, it says imperfect, so it's similar to that in terms of the verb that's used.
Right. And then here's one more. I'll just do this one real quick. So that's the same chen, just spelled a little bit differently. You can spell it out with an extra two aleph birds. Chen, Wenu, Mdiu, Anach, Seneb. So if there were Mdiu with them, if there were with them life and health, Ben Iu Erdi Ine to Nachet. Okay, let's see if I can reconstruct what that means. Then I would, I guess. Then I wouldn't cause that one brings things. Wait, does that make sense?
They wouldn't?
That makes more sense. Thank you. I was just thinking like I messed something up here. Then they wouldn't have caused that things were brought. I should explain that. This is from Wenamun. Basically, Wenamun being a little bit unfortunate in his planning. He has been sent to procure wood from, I think, Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken, high up there somewhere, like direction Syria. He's supposed to bring wood back for the Temple of Amun. He has a commission, essentially, from the high priest of Amun. And he had, like, a box of silver, basically, to pay for it. However, he left a letter behind, and the silver got stolen on the way. So he's basically showing up now with his ship, or the ship that he chartered, essentially saying the only thing that he still has is a statue of the god Amun. That wasn't stolen. Everything else he has lost. Either misplaced it or outright it got stolen. And he's now showing up basically saying, you still have to give me that cedar wood like your ancestors did generations before, the way it's always been for Great Egypt. And then the local ruler says, well, yeah, but in the past they used to bring gold and silver, you know? What are you going to give me? Oh, no, I don't have to bring you anything because I have Amun with me. And Amun is the giver of life and health. So you should just do it for your own benefit. If my predecessors had that, if they had been able to give life and health, do you think they would have brought anything, basically? That's the point he's trying to make. It's a Hail Mary approach.
Name is Amun, when
Amun, true.
Existence of Amun or something, or what would you say, being of Amun?
Oh, I've never thought about that. That's a really good point. I don't
sometimes
quite know
these
what the
characters, was he a real person, or is this a character in an ancient story? Because if it's a character in an ancient story, then maybe the name comes from the story sometimes. Like,
I really don't know. There is a book.
How is it written? How is Wenamun written in hieroglyphs?
Let's see.
We got 2 minutes to figure this out.
We have 2 minutes to figure this out. Okay. How can I find Wenamun that quickly? Corpus, search text. Nope. Unamun? Yes. It helps if you know what it is.
There it is.
See it? You see it already? Where is he?
See the line that starts with Heru and Majid, blah, 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 Wenamun and Per. It's near the it's the second line. Yep.
This one, right? So yeah, Amun exists, question mark? There is Amun? I don't know. Really good question. Have to finish on time today because I have to get in a car in exactly a minute. So let's close it here. I pretty much got there. The only thing I still had is where the future 3 came from, and that's to your question, Ben, like what's the difference in first future, second future, third future? We don't really have that in Late Egyptian yet. There's 2 futures in Late Egyptian, the subjunctive and the third future, but in Coptic you have 3. And maybe we take this as a quick follow-up in 2 weeks. I'll just save that.
Will you post this on the Discord?
I will.
Or is this already on the syllabus?
This one is not. We're current through chapter 18, but 19 is new. I just wrote it this morning.
Okay. Well, when this gets posted, I'll look at that, and that'll help a lot. So thank you.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Thanks so much, and see you all next week for House and Seth.
Thank you.
That's great. Have a great weekend. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.